Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of three talks that we are organizing in Climate Justice Week. When I say we, my name is Zuki Serpa, and I'm working in the Center for World Environmental History with Vinita Damodaran and Felix Padel and Mika Peck and quite a few people. We're very, very, very excited about this meeting that offers us an opportunity to look into the environmental issues and questions in Ecuador that hopefully Mika will, in his introduction, will tell us a little. And then Tali, it will go over to you to talk about the Tesoro Escondido Reserve with your colleagues, Britta and Nicolas. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the framework. As I said, three talks, one about Ecuador and restoration of forest, the second on Thursday by a campaign group Foil Vedanta, working on mining in Zambia and India. And the last talk will be on Friday about deforestation and mining and people and climate change by Vinita Damodaran and myself. So first of all, thank you for the student who organized the Climate Justice Week. And I'm hoping that these talks and all the other events that we haven't organized will give people a sense of the political space that we're in now and what is possible with, I would say, at least my hopes and intentions is to create this global platform that used to be 20 years ago with the World Social Forum to coordinate environmental change along the lines of social justice and against racism in environmental or caused by environmental degradation. Again, so basically there's a new generation of people involved and we're hoping to enthuse them into taking the role of leading that change. I think that I said what I had to say for starting the series off. Shall we move to present? Could you present yourself, Tali and Mika? Because I'm always thinking that people are better at presenting themselves than.
Sure, no problem. Do you want me to kick off now, and then I'll pass over to Sitlali? I'll just give them the background to the projects and the ideas and the talk, and then yeah. Okay, let me just share some slides.
If you could talk about the structure of the meeting, so people know what to expect a little bit.
Okay, as far as from my point of view, I'm going to give maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15. Careful I don't go over to 30 minutes, being an academic. About sort of the build up to this project or the challenges that we're trying to address in this case, which links to biodiversity and to climate and to social justice and all sorts of things really behind it. And I'm just going to hand over at a certain point to Sitlali when kind of partially when she started her PhD on this and so here at Sussex University, in fact, and then she took it off into another wonderful direction from that point onwards. So I think that's the way it'll work. And then Tali, I don't know how long have you been allocated? Something like?
So after Mika presents a little bit of the background of how this project was born and the situation here in Ecuador, not only on the coast, but also in the whole country, then we will present a little bit what we have been doing in the reserve and what are also the opportunities for people to get involved. So I think I have around 30 minutes, something like that.
Excellent, and absolutely, from my point of view, it's a great inspiration, actually. So I'm delighted to thanks Suki for organising this and for everyone else in Climate Justice Week. I don't know all your names, but thanks for giving the space for this because it's important. Okay, do you mind if I screen share and just check it all works? So that seems to be the first issue always. Let's have a think. Can you make me a co-host? Is that possible? So I can screen share? Is that possible?
Mike, is it possible to put Mika?
Yeah, I think I've done that now.
I think it's done, yeah.
Thank you.
Share screen, here we go. Okay, so just want to check first of all that you can see the screen share. All good? Great. To a certain degree, unfortunately, this probably explains my status in global sort of activism and engagement, which is, you know, these things are very, very complex. And I'm going to encapsulate this whole project in the start with the concept of wicked problems. So bear with me. Okay, so I'm just going to give you really the context behind a lot of these projects I've been engaged in recently. And I'm quite inspired because I've seen some great results from this, what I consider one approach. It's just one approach amongst many, but we've all got to find a niche and do what we can, I feel, under the current circumstances. So I'm going to talk about this concept of, well, we all heard of citizen science in a way, but this concept of civic science, really, which I think is an effective, grounded way to have direct action at a place and a location, which is often our frustration. I think we can be involved in very esoteric arguments that don't seem to have any link to real world impact. So I think this is one mechanism that as a scientist, I can contribute to what I would consider a healthier ecosystem, a healthier planet and so forth. But it's really to address this thing called a wicked conservation problem. And it's not a slang for being a good one. It's wicked is actually a scientific term or social science term. So a wicked problem is, well, a normal science problem really has a problem and there's a solution, a direct solution. But something like a wicked problem has a lot of other criteria. And it can be something like this. I mean, this is just an example. It can take a long time to evaluate the solution for a start. They're never completely solved. Every problem is unique. They're multi-scalar, interconnected issues. You try and solve one bit, you'll create some other issues. They straddle organizational and disciplinary boundaries. You've got multiple engaged stakeholders or people involved in that issue that have conflicting agendas. And I suppose, you know, conservation sits very closely in that, whatever scale of conservation you're using. So a simple problem, you know, you've got a clear problem with a clear solution, predictable, straightforward, and obvious properties. And it gets more complex. You can have complicated ones, non-linear reactions and stuff, but wicked ones fundamentally just resist defining sometimes. I've given you a reference there, being a good academic, to have a look at some academic work on the concept of civic sciences, really. But the idea that engaging science and society can actually have a direct effect. There's an element of the ivory tower, potentially, by working at university. How do we bridge that gap between what we do here and the information we generate, which is often hidden behind sort of academic journal doors, for example, and real use of it on the ground? That's the way to think about it. So how can we actually get meaningful socio-ecological outcomes from what we do? Here's a little graph, because you've got to have a graph, haven't you? So on the x-axis, you've got this idea of participation axis, okay? So at one stage, you've got no participation of anyone beyond, suppose, the project people. And at the other end here, you've got participatory and co-creation. So creating with other people, with the whole, even the concept or the problems or the design or what you're going to do with it. On the y-axis, you have these, first of all, closed, clear goals. So what you're going to do, we're going to do this, and that'll be the case. And on this one, you don't really know what you're going to do, but you're going to maybe do something. And you can categorize this civic citizen science or spectrum on this. So the simplest one is where you've got a scientist wants some information about something like pollinators. So they engage the public to look at how many bees visit a flower outside and collect the data, and they make a publication. And I suppose the idea behind it is the publication is then read by a policymaker that makes a change. You can have one where you've got a policy you want to enact, but you've got to engage citizenry in it. So that's another way of doing it. So it's slightly more participatory, but you've got a very clear goal at the end. And then there's the most interesting one, which is this section here called transition-driven civic science. And that's where wicked problems, I think, reside. So the idea is that engaging with the problem, you define the problem, the solutions, and the multiple ways, and probably experiment as you go to see how you get your result. So this idea of using transition-driven civic science, where you create change by engaging with citizenry, I suppose, is the thing that intrigues me. How do you get change? How do you actually create change? So I'll bring you to Ecuador. I could give you a long story about Ecuador, but I'll keep it fairly short. I was lucky. Well, I worked hard to write a grant in 1995 to go to Ecuador. I got a small amount of money, a few £1,000s, and went off as my first science, as after my master's, and went up and down the Andes collecting macroinvertebrates, so large aquatic insects, to see how they varied with altitude. And in that process, kind of fell in love with some of these forests. They were beautiful, and I could see that they were being, increasingly threatened. So the area I'm going to focus in on is just to show you where Ecuador is here on the equator, on the western side of the South American continent. And we're going to be focusing on an area called Esmeraldas here, Esmeraldas, right up in the northwest here. Now, Ecuador is incredible. It's one of them. It's probably a mega diverse country. It's considered one of the mega diverse countries. So that means it's got the highest number of species for certain categories per square kilometer of probably any country. For mammals, for example, it works. Birds, you probably find you're pretty close on that as well. And you've got the highest rate of deforestation in South America. So put those two things together and, that's a recipe for disaster. In addition, you've got this really interesting setup. So on the east here, you've got the Amazon rainforest. So you've got all the species and probably some of the highest concentrations of species in this part of the Amazon system. You've got the Andean mountains that run through the middle, which then have a huge diversity of birds, particularly up the slopes. That's a global biodiversity hotspot for birds. And then on this side, you've got the coast area. And to the north of it, so north from there, you've got a wet rainforest system, and the south, it's a dry system. Can you imagine with those multiple systems, how many species and niches there are, for a start? It's worth just pointing out that this wet forest system is driven by the things that create the El Nino events, these massive climatic events, where you have an ocean current here, a warm current that comes down the north, and that results in lots of evaporation, and a rainforest here. Also interesting is that the Amazon used to run out of here this way before the Andes came up, only a mere 10 million years ago. And so what you had was this remnant of tropical rainforest that was part of the Amazon that's now been isolated and gone its own way in evolutionary history over 10 million years, creating incredible endemism. The sad news is that's down to, well, it can vary from your estimate, 5 to 10% of remaining forest. So it's incorporated this whole sort of section along this coastal area to the west of the Andes as a biodiversity hotspot. And there are a number of these defined in the world by having lost 70% of their existing land and having very high endemism. And that means that species are only found in small areas. So when you lose a bit of forest, you lose that species rather than being distributed all the way through the system. You can still chop away and keep the species alive, as it were. So it's a way of identifying priority hotspots where we've got to do something about it. Just an idea here, there's a simple map I just pulled out on, I think it's mammals, of species number and how they're distributed in Ecuador. And you can see the Amazon's got high mammal diversity. Where we're working, what I'll be looking at over here is very high diversity as well of mammals. It's another hotspot within a hotspot within a hotspot. So it's a high priority. If you're a conservation biologist, you're going to go somewhere where, this is probably one of the priority zones based on those criteria, if that's what you're looking at. The focus of this talk really is on the brown-headed spider monkey. Now, this is called, in Latin name is Ateles fusiceps. Fusiceps, it was listed as amongst the most 25 endangered primates in the world. Having said that, lots of primates could get on that list. But this is critically endangered. And when we started this project, when I started this project in 2005, I suppose I started this. They estimated there were 250 left in the wild. Okay, and we're talking about a historical zone where they used to live on the western side, where the wet rainforest extended all the way down to the middle of Ecuador here, with all these little black dots being museum records historically collected of that species. So this is what we understood in 2005. This is what we knew that the forest was down to. There was a large area here, another protected area here, and this area was completely unknown, really, unexplored, and well, just unknown. They didn't know what the status of this species was. So in 2005, I was really lucky to get out of what they call the postdoctoral trap by writing this grant to the UK Darwin Initiative, which is the obligation by the British government to give something like 20 million a year for projects for countries that are high in diversity and low in resources. And this project here called PrimeNet was aiming to develop a sustainable network for primate conservation in northwest Ecuador. And its focus was the brown-headed spider monkey. And here's an example of some of the activities we got involved in. So this first one is a parabiologist training course, and I'll come to that for a moment, just as a quick summary. We did lots of other stuff, literature, school material, and so forth that was published to try and disseminate the issue in that region. My work in it really was the more scientific side of it, and this shows the role of some sort of applied sciences to these things, and they can contribute to something, which is working out where are we going to look for this damn thing. This is a needle in a haystack. So this was, I had to use satellite imagery at the time because they had no land use maps for Ecuador. I had to learn how to use the software, which is fine. It's good learning curve. A bit of predictive modeling to work out where the primate might be, and then this is identifying where we should be looking, based on knowing its habitat requirements, which were quite simple for this species, that it had to have forest that was connected, it had to have a minimum area of a certain thing to survive. It was quite an easy target. Now, I'm not a complete monkey hugger, so the reason I chose this primate was it's a very good indicator. If it's present, it means the forest is over 100 years old normally. It also means there's no hunting or low hunting levels, because it's one of the first things to get shot, being the biggest arboreal primate, or forest canopy dwelling primate. So we had to work out how many there were. Traditional methods were tricky, so we started exploring other methods using sound-based stuff, and this is where we recorded the sound. We got this from hunters. Hunters said, oh, we make their sound, and they come, and then we shoot them. So we thought, oh, we could use this as well to do a quick estimate. Because one poor undergraduate spent 9 months walking up and down trails for about 800 kilometers, we estimated. She saw it, was it 19 times or something? Poor Meche. So we had to have a quicker method for working out their densities as well. And this was a hunting sort of estimate as well. So we put all this stuff together in a mapping system in ArcGIS and came up with this conservation action mapper where a priority zone was down here. Now the gray is a protected area in speech marks, and we put that there. The green is where it could be, but there's probably hunting, so it's probably gone. The yellow is where they would probably still be. So we need to look at extending protected areas and working out what the situation was. So it narrows down our area, The black is interesting. The black is the area, actually, where we're going to be talking about now, where since 1978, I think when the Landsat satellite started, there's not been a single clear image of that area because it rains all the time. Now, there's a story about rain and diversity, which I'm not going to have time to explain. So this place called Tesoro Escondido stuck out, and that's in that region, which means hidden treasure. And it's an interesting area. It's a lowland forest. It was unprotected, and we found that it had the highest density of primates of anywhere we'd studied of this species. We had something like 8 first studies were 8 individuals per square kilometer. And we're talking about, the 250 thought in the wild. So this was like a really dense spot. And it was kind of at this point, really, where we got some of the first photographs here of the primate, and where basically we started to engage with the community in this way, in this concept of the para-ecologist model. And this is really where Citlali came in at that same time. She was doing her PhD there, so we had someone to sort of provide the structure and the science behind this idea of engaging with communities. You're sitting down together on an equal, non-hierarchical level, trying to work with them to say, well, let's try and work out what the problem is here. And let's use some science, let's get you engaged with it, let's use the information to create some influence. So this parabiologist, para-ecologist model, I'll let you explain a little bit more, Tali. I'm sure you'll be able to maybe mention it en passant. And but it's a way of identifying local champions, really, who can play crucial changes in change processes. And it can actually generate significant social and economic benefits to the local community and can lead off in all sorts of directions, I think. And for science, it's very useful for us because we can actually engage in ongoing research as we do now during the COVID, because we've got this network of wonderful researchers out there still collecting data. It means we don't have to fly in experts because they are the local experts with time and so forth. There's lots of additional benefits, educational and social. I'm sure, Tali, maybe you'll be able to summarize this a bit more because you've been really pushing this model forward and taking it to really another level. So let me pass you on at this slide stage where just to say that, one of the key successes is community links and engagement, but I'm going to show you how maybe Citlali's done that. Maybe a few true stories of how difficult it can be sometimes. Okay, so I'll leave it at this slide, which is, well, this is a little bit down the line, but it will be about Tesoro Escondido that was established, the little picture of you there, Tali. So I'll hand over to you. What actually happened to you in about I can't remember now, 2013, 2012?
Well, thank you very much, Mika, for everything. I think looking down the line, well, after so many years, we have created something that is really interesting. So, well, thank you everyone also for the invitation. I'm always very happy to go back to a place that I love, that is the University of Sussex. So I'm really happy to be here today. So, well, to start with, we prepared a small video for you guys because my team can't be here live. So I will share it with you. Am I able to share the screen? Yes. Let's see. Let's go back.
Hi everyone, I want to show you a little bit of the Tesoro Escondido Reserve. We protect 2,000 hectares of primary forest in the lowland Ecuadorian Chocó, which is a habitat that is critically endangered, particularly because of deforestation, timber extraction, industrial timber extraction, and agricultural frontier that is pushing the forest every day more. We carry out here different kinds of projects. The first one is scientific research. We have projects studying the Ecuadorian brown-headed spider monkeys, which is a species that is critically endangered. But we also study jaguars. We study critically endangered species of trees. And particularly here, we are in a reforestation patch where we have worked for the last 3 or 4 years.
Hola, mi nombre es Yadira Giler, coordinadora de campo de la Reserva Tesoro Escondido, donde trabajamos con algunos proyectos en conservación y ahorita estamos aquí en un área de reforestación de 30 hectáreas de reforestación, en la cual hemos sembrado 30 especies diferentes para lo que es la vida silvestre aquí dentro de la reforestación.
Hola, mi nombre es Riel Villegua, soy un parabiólogo, trabajo aquí en la Reserva Tesoro Escondido. Uno de nuestros proyectos que se trabaja aquí en la Reserva es con cámaras trampa. La finalidad de cámaras trampa es obtener resultados, digamos, de todas las especies que son raras de verlas o son evasivas a los seres humanos. Tenemos dos finalidades con estas cámaras trampa. La primera es que, digamos, nos demuestra la cantidad de especies que hay en un lugar y también determina la población de las especies amenazadas. Entre las especies amenazadas que tenemos aquí en la reserva son los jaguares, pumas y el cuco hormiguero bandeado.
Hola, mi nombre es John Encarnación, soy trabajador de la Reserva Tesoro Escondido y me dedico al proyecto de cámaras trampa y el proyecto de murciélagos. El proyecto de murciélagos se hizo con la finalidad de ver la biodiversidad y para ver un poco la dispersión de semillas.
Hola, mi nombre es Vanessa, trabajo en la Reserva Tesoro Escondido, soy parabióloga, me dedico más a lo que son los anfibios y los reptiles. Nuestro objetivo principal es conocer más sobre los anfibios y reptiles y aquí ahora les voy a mostrar sobre una cecilia, que es un anfibio. Ahora vamos a sacar. Bueno, como pueden ver, aquí les estoy mostrando una cecilia. Ella se llama una cecilia nígrica, se alimenta de lombrices, es de hábitos fosoriales y es muy poco estudiada.
Well, I hope that you could see it well. I'm not sure if it was very clear. My computer sometimes is not the fastest. But well, that was just like a small flavor of the reserve. I told them that this presentation was for some Sussex students, so they were all very happy to share some things with you guys. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail of what we do. And well, Mika already explained a little bit how we were formed, basically. The story goes that in 2014, I think I was in the middle almost, at the end almost of my PhD. And we went to Tesoro Escondido with Mika and with one of the representatives of one of our funders. And we were walking in the forest and suddenly we saw that in the middle of the forest, a farmer, because at that time, my field work was in the lands of farmers, that they kindly let us walk in their forest and look for monkeys. So we went there, and the farmer decided to log 5 or 6 hectares of primary forest just to build a pasture. So I think at that time that was a wake-up call for all of us, and we were lucky that Rob was with us, because you know, we could also see that if we didn't do anything, you know, we could study the monkeys and everything, but from one day to another, the forest could be gone. And as Mika said, this very specific place, you know, is home to almost the only healthy population of brown-headed spider monkeys in the world. So that's when we had the opportunity of this funder to give us some money to purchase land. So we started this process, and well, you know, we had the support of the local community. Actually, the reserve was formed because the local community suggested at that time to Mika to buy land. You know, it was very strange, you know, because normally reserves, especially in Latin America or especially in Ecuador, are formed because organizations, could be national or international, decide to build a reserve in a place that is endangered. But in our case, it was the local people that had been working with us for a few years already. They told Mika, actually, I remember, what was his name? Donovo, telling Mika, like, Mika, you have to buy the land. If you don't buy the land, then the spider monkeys are going to be gone, the forest will be gone. But if you can imagine, at that time, we had no idea of, you know, of laws. You know, I'm also a foreigner, I'm Mexican, so I don't know, I didn't know the laws at that time of buying land. We didn't have the money, but it was a very strong startup, I think. You know, it was, as I said, a wake-up call. And at that time, we started like asking all the other local collaborators. And they all said like, yes, you know, it is possible. We know people who want to sell their land. So just get the money and do it. So we were like, okay, let's see. And then we were so lucky that our funder asked us, I still remember, maybe Mika remembers too, you know, that question of how much land do spider monkeys need to be okay in the long term? And that is a very, very tricky question, because, you know, you have to consider a lot of things, you know, connectivity, genetics, a lot of things. But at that time, I remember we said 500 hectares of this land will protect these spider monkeys, you know, in this area. And we were lucky that we had the money. So that started the process. I was at the end of my PhD, so it was a bit crazy at that time, but we decided to move forward with this. And it was thanks to the local community and key members of the local communities that began talking to the farmers. And, you know, a lot of the farmers had their land as a savings account, sort of, you know, to sell to the timber company when it came to the point of selling. And they sold to us. So very quickly, in a matter of 2 years, I think, we managed to purchase the land. And so, yeah, that's more or less the story. Now I will share a short presentation. Share screen. We have some similar slides because Mika stole them from me. But let's see. We do have other photos of spider monkeys, but this is very good for presentations. So yeah, I mean, the idea is that we are like a case study for how participatory research and community involvement can work towards the conservation of endangered species. Now, in this case, of the brown-headed spider monkey. So you saw part of my team now. This is the whole team. Now, we are part in the forest, so the team members that you saw in the short video, Ariel, Pato, and Vanessa are in the field, and Yadira, obviously. And we have other team members that are outside the reserve working in community projects that I will also share with you shortly. And we also have Nicolas, who's my wonderful assistant, that he is actually the one who put together the video. So everything that is happening in Tesoro is thanks because I have a wonderful team. I have an amazing team. So I really want to share this with you. So as Mika said, and this is only a short summary of what he already shared. This is the green bits are the remaining forests in Ecuador. As you can see, the whole coast is already almost gone. And the area in red, you can see a large, perimeter in black. And that is all the perimeters in black are national reserves, that the Ministry of Environment has set up in different levels of protection category to protect certain habitats. That one is a very, very large reserve called Cotacachi-Cayapas. Actually now is a national park. And that's where, if you see, like the remaining forest is. However, in terms of different kinds of biodiversity, a protected area not always is really protecting what it should. In the case of brown-headed spider monkey, as Mika already shared, they like certain kinds of forests, specifically lowland forests, and they are located outside this protected area, right? So in unprotected forest, so to speak. So this is like a zoom in to that area that I just showed you. As you saw a little bit in the video, these are the landscapes that you can see. We still have got amazing rivers. Actually, this area is one of the most humid in the planet. So water is always there, and it's a very important resource for people and for animals as well. No? You can drink water from these rivers, and they're in almost a perfect state. Mika told you a little bit about esmeraldas. The word esmeraldas means green. No, it means emerald, sorry, which is green, the green province of Ecuador. And that was a long time ago. However, in the 60s, the industrial timber extraction started. And not only that, it also started migration from other provinces of Ecuador, and a reform in the government in the laws where to prove that a land was yours, you had to log the forest. So that contributed to the deforestation, and nowadays we have more than 90% of the original forest completely cleared. We also have a strong presence of timber and palm oil companies. Palm oil, fortunately, now it's dying. It has some kind of disease, and it's dying, but there are other monocultures that are taking its place, and it did a lot of damage over the last 30 years or so. Esmeraldas is one of the poorest provinces in Ecuador. It has the lowest education level in the country, or the second lowest, and the main income for people is employment by companies, cacao production as well, palm oil, as I said, and local wood extraction as well. As you see, that's how people extract local timber. It's quite isolated. There's very little interest from government programs. Now it has improved. When I started going there, it was way more isolated. Now it has improved a little bit, but it is not enough. No. Well, as Nick already introduced you, the Ateles fusiceps, one of the 25 most endangered primates in the world, the most endangered primate in Ecuador. And this is how basically the reserve was born. When we started this project, we always thought, even when I was in my PhD, I always thought that participative research was I want this slide, sorry. I was always very worried about how scientific information is generated and distributed. If you think about it, very little or nothing of the scientific information that is generated arrives to the local communities where the biodiversity or the endangered species exist. So what normally happens is that biologists go, or researchers in different topics, go to local communities They discover a new species, or they study a different species. They write a paper, they write books, and then they're gone from that community. Most of the times, not even local communities know what they have close to them. They don't know that that person that became famous because some book or some paper, or they don't know that their place is known everywhere, you know, in the whole world, you know. So I always thought that that was a bit of a problem, you know, with how scientific information was generated. And the thing is that communities are not given the opportunity to participate in how and why is this information generated, no? Why do we have to study spider monkeys? Why are they interesting? Why are they important, no, to the communities, no? So when I started my PhD with Mika, we decided to carry out a small parabiologist program, you know, with Mika. You saw the photo. Mika had trained already, I think, 30 parabiologists, but you know, my project was quite small, so we trained only 5, and we hired 3 of them, you know, just like as an experiment, you know. And what is a parabiologist for? Well, it's a local person employed as research assistants, and well, nowadays also environmental educators, but that they also have a decision-making right, you know, inside the research. So they can also decide what to do, and they are part of the dissemination of results as well. Over time, they become ambassadors of conservation in their own communities. It is a job alternative in the area, and it also provides personal and professional development. We try always to provide training in all areas, you know, that they need or that they want. And we created a program that is very friendly to rural women, you know, and it empowers them in a sense. This wasn't on purpose, it just happened, and it happened because Yadira, the one that you saw on the video, she was the woman that was in charge of the house where I stayed, where I lived in 1 year in Tesoro Escondido while doing my fieldwork. And then, you know, after a couple of years, I noticed that she was a fantastic woman, you know, that she's highly intelligent and amazing, doing everything that has to do with logistics. But in the field, you know, in the forest, you know, she's like, you know, really, really, really amazing. You have to know her to really understand what I'm saying. But the thing is that rural women are not used to go to the forest, you know. Ever since they are little, they're told that the forest is dangerous and there's no place for a woman in the forest. So we changed that, you know. Yadira began, you know, going with us to the forest, and she has an amazing eye for detail and for projects as well. And slowly we started incorporating more women to the project. Obviously, there has been a lot of obstacles in this, because it is very difficult to change something that you have believed for your whole life. But now I can say that most of my team are women, and we are in the positions of power, no? And for men in the area, at the beginning it was a bit funny, you know, that there was no boss that was a man, you know. So well, they have overcome that now. So that this project, you know, in Tesoro has become a source of empowerment for them. They support also the creation and maintenance of the reserve. And also something that I want to say in terms of how the reserve was formed is that, for example, we don't have problems in terms of invasions. We don't have patrolling of the reserve, because we are friends with the neighbors. We know them. And because my team is also part of the community, we have very good relationships with them. That means that we don't have to patrol in case there are invaders or there are people that want to harm the reserve, because a lot of the neighbors also feel part of the reserve. They feel part of all the projects that we carry out. Parabiologists are also in charge of design of new research projects and support of the communities. What does this mean? It means that if they think that, for example, we have a critically endangered tree that is called Magnolia Dixoni. if they come up with an idea of protecting this tree or propagating the seeds or something that I think it's worth trying, we all discuss it and then we do try it. So the idea is that we also generate our own research inside Tesoro Escondido. We don't necessarily depend on students that come. I mean, we do depend economically in some sense, but in terms of research, we want to create our own research. We have carried out several projects together with parabiologists. And the nice thing is that they go out and disseminate these results. So these photos are from international symposiums and congresses. No, Vanessa has been in 2 of them, you know, talking about her projects and her collaboration in some projects of amphibians. Miguel, you know, he was in a congress of environmental educators of Colombia and Ecuador. And Pato and Danny were in a congress of mammals where they showed the results on camera traps, which was really, really cool because they showed results that they thought it was, you know, usual to have different species in Tesoro, and everybody there were so surprised. You know, as Mika said, this area has been understudied, so we still find new species. Last year, two or three species of frogs were described to science, and 2 of them are in Tesoro Escondido, were described from Tesoro Escondido. In terms of what we do inside the reserve, we have biodiversity monitoring, as I said. Herpetofauna is a big thing for us now. We have critically endangered species of frogs. Like you can see, this one is the Cocranella mache that was also found by a Sussex student. And this one was a frog that hadn't been seen in 70 years. It's a huge frog, and it's from the canopy. And this year we're starting a big project with the Chocoan bushmaster. There is very little information about this snake. It's one of the most venomous vipers there are. So that's one of the things that we do. We have the camera trap project that Ariel briefly told you about. This is a jaguarundi. That is, there are very little videos of jaguarundis in the wild. And also something important is that we contribute with our data to the knowledge of biodiversity in Ecuador. So all the data that we have this year, for example, is going to the Ecuadorian red list that is being updated. We have the queen of Tesoro. Her name is Bandit. Now she's a bit older. In this video, she was young. As Ariel mentioned, the banded brown cuckoo that we just started a project also with the Rufford Foundation. And in terms of birds, we have also the critically endangered great green macaw. And another queen of the canopy, the harpy eagle. We have the only nest recorded on the coastal Ecuador. We became quite famous because of this. I had a lot of people who wanted to visit the reserve, to photograph it and everything. But as a community and as a team, we put as priority the health and the well-being of the chick. So we studied it. We had also Sussex students monitoring the harp eagle. It's an amazing animal. We are waiting for this year for a new nest. Let's hope that we will have it. I want to show you the chick. That's the chick. It's really sweet. And you know, Tesoro is a place where you never know what you're going to find. Actually, this nest was found by Sussex students and by another student from Oxford Brookes who were doing primate monitoring. You know, and they found this. This was the chick last year before it flew away looking for her new territory. And well, we have a big part of reforestation. This area, as I said before, has been deforested, you know, by industrial companies, you know, extracting timber. And what we do in our reforestation patches is to use native trees, native trees that we know that are important for brown-headed spider monkeys and for birds. And it has been a long process of getting to know these trees. There's also little information of trees in this area. And, we collect the seeds also from the feces of spider monkeys. Sometimes we don't know what they are and we just plant them and then later we identify them. We have critically endangered species of trees like the Magnolia dicksoni and Magnolia canandeana that we also found by accident, really. And we collaborate, with a lot of botanists, especially David Neal and Antonio Vasquez, who's also Mexican. And now we're doing different studies with these trees like seed dispersion and propagation of these trees. In terms of what we do, this is what we do inside the reserve, right? What we do outside of the reserve is, I think it's equally important or sometimes even more, because we need to include local communities in what we do. Something that sometimes I think it's a shame in a lot of reserves is that they focus a lot in what they do inside the reserve, research and tourism and everything. But as I said before, local communities have no idea what happens inside the reserve. Normally, they see the reserves as a place for foreigners, that pay a lot of money for being there. So for me, environmental education was a must, and it had to be permanent. It had to be well thought, well planned. And we started with two schools in one community. And then my own team decided to expand. They are so empowered now that they decide to expand now projects, So it ended up with working before the COVID pandemic in 11 schools in 8 communities. And I'm sorry, this is a mistake. We were in 11 schools in 10 communities. We had 4 parabiologists working full time, and we tried to work in a way where students could go out of their classrooms and get to know the biodiversity that they have in their 100 meters from their house. We had a lot of visits to the reserve as well. They know the harp eagle, for example, that you can see that a lot of people haven't been to the reserve in terms of tourists, but I really wanted the local people also to get to know the reserve and the harp eagle. We have worked together with the Ministry of Education in a project where all the schools have organic gardens. And we used to do open houses, where all the schools got to meet each other and to share what they did every year, And in terms of community projects, of further community projects, we have one that I really like. Is one of my favorite projects because it has grown in a way that is very interesting. It's the agroecology project now it's in a lot of communities, but at that time it was only in Cristobal Colón. It was born in Cristobal Colón. And the idea is, I will show you a short video on this. Let me just, give me 1 second. One second, I will show you a short video also on the organic garden.
De huertos agroecológicos de la Reserva Tesoro Escondido Nace en el año 2017 a raíz de una investigación realizada sobre el estado de la seguridad alimentaria en las comunidades de la zona de mantenimiento del bosque primario del Chocó ecuatoriano. La Reserva tuvo la iniciativa de crear un espacio de capacitación en temas de agroecología y permacultura. Los huertos agroecológicos se basan en los 3 principios éticos de la permacultura: el cuidado de la tierra, el cuidado de la gente y una distribución equitativa de los excedentes. Esta es la historia de la huerta Viva la Cristóbal, que comenzó en el recinto de Cristóbal Colón, en la provincia de Esmeraldas, liderado por la ingeniera Daniela Montalvo, con el objetivo de mejorar la soberanía y seguridad alimentaria de la comunidad. Este proyecto involucra a jóvenes de la comunidad, la mayoría mujeres, en la construcción y mantenimiento de un huerto de 500 metros cuadrados en el que se siembran alrededor de 40 especies comestibles y medicinales.
Aquí está nuestra huerta Viva Cristóbal Colón. La hemos realizado con un propósito de trabajar con niños y también con gente adulta. El objetivo principal de la huerta es que todos los alimentos que nosotros produzcamos aquí se queden aquí. Ya no de ir con la rutina de ir a comprar al supermercado en Golondrina, que es el más cerca que hay por aquí, y que esos productos ya vienen contaminados, diría yo, porque son a base de puro químico. En cambio, nosotros aquí lo hacemos orgánicamente, y esa es la idea, de que las personas que trabajemos aquí llevemos a nuestros hogares. Pero como tenemos una área pequeña, no podemos distribuir a la comunidad entera. Pero con las 10 familias que hay aquí, es un gran avance que utilicemos productos orgánicos, porque todo aquí es orgánico. Que el tomate, hemos tenido cosecha de tomate, de hierbita, de pimiento, de zapallo, de yuca, de verde, que ya ahorita, recién esta semana cosechamos el verde, de frijol. Eso es muy importante y ese es uno de los objetivos principales de este proyecto. La idea del huerto es trabajar en grupo y estamos tratando de que los tiempos de antes se vuelvan, no dejarlos atrás, porque ahorita vivimos en un mundo de que solamente compramos fungicidas y cogemos y fumigamos lo más fácil, ya, porque el trabajo orgánico es muy difícil, es de mucho trabajo, un trabajo recorrido que hay que hacerlo cada 15 días, cada semana, y si nosotros hacemos el trabajo de fumigar con los fungicidas, lo hacemos una vez cada 2 meses, cambio el trabajo de nosotros no. Y ese es el propósito, aparte de trabajar en grupo, trabajar con la comunidad, esto de aquí implementarlo en todo el recinto Cristóbal Colón, en las diferentes casas que estén predispuestas, claro, a hacer el trabajo que nosotros hacemos. Hasta ahorita nos ha ido bien, porque yo no pensaba tener la acogida.
Well, I'm not sure if you were able to watch it well, but that's more or less like the idea of the agroecology project. If you want to see the whole video, you can go to our YouTube channel because it's a bit long. But you know, the thing is that for us it is very important that that we also get together with the local communities and that we try to collaborate and to support them in problems that they have. Normally, people that have that have been living a long time with timber companies or mining companies get used to these companies solving all their problems. You know, and when an organization like ours or like Cocotoko, that is the organization, the umbrella organization that's where we work, comes along, sometimes local communities want all their problems solved, you know, by us. And the idea with us, you know, we're a small group, you know, we don't we don't have a lot of funds, you know, but the idea for us is that local communities understand that we are just there to support them, and that any kind of work, you know, needs to be together, you know. So this was the case of this project. And I should say as well that they are all volunteers, you know, they are all volunteers. There is not, they are not paid. They decided to contribute to this place. It is a communal space as well, that is behind the health center. So we also have medicinal plants there. And there is a project now by the Ministry of Health where doctors should also prescribe natural remedies, you know, in very mild situations like a tummy ache, for example, you take chamomile. I'm not sure if in the UK if it's the same case, but the idea is that doctors began prescribing, you know, some herbs from the local garden. So now people are more interested in visiting these places. It's quite a big space now. It's almost 600 square meters. And we have around, I think it's like 60 species of edible medicinal and ornamental plants. We collect organic waste from, I think, 20 houses is now. And the idea is that when all the production goes to the volunteers that have helped out in the garden, but the excellence go to the families that have contributed to the organic waste. And this year, what we're going to try and do is to go further and try and start selling these products locally. And we are expanding to other communities with this project. The pandemic brought the need of going back to plant your own food, right? In the cities, obviously, it is very difficult, but in the field, last year, a lot of families asked us for help in terms of capacity building and of seeds, you know, so that each family could have their own garden. And what we want to do, hopefully this year or next year, is to start doing local fairs where people can exchange their products and to stop depending, maybe not completely, but little by little, on the outside cities where, you know, food is very expensive. These are more photos of the garden. There is Daniela. Daniela, she's a friend of mine who started all this agroecology process with us. And that is more or less what I wanted to share with you guys. It's what we do, and you know, little by little, we have built a very interesting project. You know, where we mix science with community work and with conservation. We have already you know, managed to have a lot of support from several communities, and we continue our work. You know, it depends on what happens. You know, for example, yesterday we have a project. I don't have photos of that project, but we have now a project where we try to mitigate the conflict with jaguars, because jaguars sometimes prey on the cows, you know, on weak cows or on small cows, and the farmers kill the jaguars. Imagine that in the whole northwestern part of Ecuador, there's only 50 jaguars that are there. So if you are killing them slowly, you know, it's like you were going to finish their population. So we decided to start different alternatives. And yesterday actually my team went to a land where the cows are being eaten, and the farmer was about to go and hunt the jaguar, right? And my team arrived. It was Yadira and Ariel. They arrived, and you know, they began talking to the local people. And a lot of our work is talking, and sitting down with the local people and discussing the problem and trying to find solutions together. You know, because you're not going to find the solutions by yourself. And one of our solutions is actually one that is not very expensive, and it has worked already in three lands. And that is putting bells, very loud bells, on the necks of the cows. And so we're doing that. But the idea of this is not necessarily that. It's just talking to the local people and making them understand that it is a joint responsibility. You know, the bells are not magical, but they are going to contribute, but they also have to take care of their cows. Normally, local people want to find solutions. So this is only another example of how we work, you know, that we do spend a lot of time sitting down and talking to people and, you know, and explaining, you know, that's the work, basically. Just recently, we also had a workshop on snakes. I'm going to dedicate a lot of our time this year to snakes because we are trying to reduce the accidents that we have in the area, especially in the rainy season. And we took experts to give a workshop to teachers, doctors, and local community in general to understand better what a snake is. And we had a very interesting approach to the Chachi people. We are neighbors to the indigenous Chachi people. And a teacher that I have known for a few years, he told me that in their language, the words for every specific snake are being lost. So now there's only one word for snake, you know, it doesn't matter if it's venomous, non-venomous, whatever snake, it's one word. And he said, like, no, Tali, I have to talk to my grandparents and to you know, there has to be other words, you know. And now we're building a guide in Chapala, in the language of the Chachi people, for the kids to know the individual names of each snake. Because if you don't know the names, you're never going to differentiate whether a snake is venomous or not. You're going to kill them, all of them, you know. So, and that project was born by sitting down and taking our time to talk to that person, you know, and to get to know their needs. So that's more or less what I wanted to share with you guys. I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Suki, maybe you can tell me. What I wanted to do, I'm not sure if we can do this, is to give the word to Brita, because, you know, Brita was a student of Sussex. I'm not sure if you already finished or not. I'm not sure if you were a student or you are a student, but because she can share her experience in Tesoro as a student, because I can talk marvels about Tesoro, but maybe students, you know, can give you another set of eyes, you know. So I don't know, Suki, how are we going with time? If it's okay if I give her the word now.
I think we can talk as long as people stay with us. We have 2 hours slot, but even more. But sometimes we stay 4 hours in our seminars, but I don't think that tonight. Brita, could I, before you, maybe just if you could talk a little bit about your experience as a student to students that are currently in Sussex in grey, cold England. That's one. And the second, maybe we take a little break and after 5 minutes and get back to more kind of Q&A with the audience. Is it okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, my plan was for Brita to tell you her experience, and then Nicolas to tell you a little bit about how tourism is now in the area and in Ecuador, in terms of maybe it's very different in the UK, and maybe you want to have a perspective of that as well. And well, then we're open to any questions if you want to know something. But yeah, definitely let's take a short break and then we can come back.
So Brita, will you speak before the break, and maybe Nicolas as well? So how long do you think, 5-10 minutes?
For me, I think it's only a short amount of time, maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's say 5 minutes each, and then we take a break for 5 minutes.
Would you like me to speak about my time at Tesoro now, or?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so hi everyone, I'm Britta, and as Tali mentioned, I was a student at Sussex up until last year, studying ecology, conservation and environment. So I was lucky enough to be able to visit Tesoro for the first time in the summer of 2017. I spent 4 weeks there working as a research assistant. I spent the majority of my time helping a master's student who was there at the same time as me to collect her data for her thesis project, which was studying variations in amphibian and reptile abundance and diversity between different land use types within the reserve and also in the villages surrounding the reserve. So this mostly consisted of doing HIP transects twice a day, every day, once in the morning, once at night. So we basically spent all day, every day out looking for amphibians and reptiles, which was amazing. I got to see so many incredible species, things that I had never seen before, had never heard of before. It was an incredible experience. But as well as that, I also had the opportunity to be involved in a variety of other projects that are going on at the reserve, such as helping the parabiologists with the camera traps, searching for caecilians, which at the time of my first time at the reserve, I don't think anyone had ever searched for caecilians before. I'm not sure, but it was exciting to me and the people that were there at the time, so it was cool to be involved in that. I also helped a lepidopterist to build up a species database of butterflies at the reserve, which I believe hadn't been done before either, and also planted some trees for the reforestation project. I think that what made my time at Tesoro so valuable was the fact that I was able to split my time between living at the reserve itself and also within the villages that were surrounding the reserve, because this really gave me the opportunity to integrate within the local communities and, you know, allowed me to be able to learn about the people and the culture of Ecuador as well as its wildlife. And for me personally, this really shaped my time at the reserve because, you know, I was able to hear stories from the local people about how the rainforests have changed over time and how people's connection to nature has really shifted through generations, you know, because of the pressures that Tali mentioned with the logging and converting land to agriculture and things like that. And for me, I think that this aspect was equally as important in contributing towards my understanding of conservation, as was the actual field research that I had gone to the reserve to help out with. I think it was also really amazing to see, you know, the influence that Tesoro has had in promoting environmental awareness in the local communities, by involving local people in the conservation projects, as Tali mentioned, and how they've been successful in, you know, finding solutions that benefit both the people in these communities as well as, you know, promoting the protection of wildlife within the rainforests. And to be honest, I'd say that my time spent at Tesoro really sort of restored my faith in humanity a bit, because I saw how people such as Yadida and Patricio and of course Tali have dedicated their lives to protecting this beautiful rainforest and its biodiversity, and while at the same time, you know, inspiring so many other people to do the same. So I loved my time at the reserve so much that I decided to return the following year to carry out my own dissertation project, which was to study the population of the brown-headed spider monkey, which the reserve is known for. And yeah, I'd say that, you know, both of these experiences and my time spent at the reserve have really reminded me why I chose to study ecology and conservation, and really motivated me to learn as much as I could throughout my degree, so that I could one day, you know, contribute towards the protection of wildlife in the same way that the team at Tesoro have been so successful in doing. And that's all from me.
Thank you so much, Britta. Well, Britta was one of our star students, I should say, but all of the students that we have had, I have seen, well, almost for almost all of them, how they also shift their perspective, no, of what is conservation, no? That is not it's not like, you know, the fairy tale, you know, that you can sometimes see in a documentary. And when they are there, they do understand, no, a little bit more of what it takes. No? So yes, thank you, Rita, for everything.
Thank you for inviting me to speak and for, you know, allowing me the opportunity to visit Tesoro.
Are you still there? Or are you still in Ecuador?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I was only there for 2 summers, 2017 and 2018, but sadly I had to return to finish my studies. But hopefully as soon as this whole pandemic is over, I'll be able to return again and do some other cool research projects.
Amazing. Thank you, Britta. Is Nicolas, are you going to tell us?
Yes, hi. Thank you for inviting me and inviting Tesoro to this wonderful experience. Well, my name is Nicolas Herman. I've been studying, I finished my studies in ecotourism here in Ecuador, and since I finished, I've been working at Tesoro Escondido Reserve. I was going to talk a little bit about tourism in Ecuador. So yes, Ecuador is not a really big country, but it's considered one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. And as Mika said before, it has regions. Ecuador has 4 regions. The first one is the coast region, where the Chocó forest is located. The highland is crossed by 3 branches of the Andes Mountains, and the Amazon forest, and also the Galapagos. So something amazing about Ecuador is that within a few hours you can travel from the coast to the Andes Mountains and also to the rainforest, also called the Amazon forest. Well, Ecuador is also an opportunity, is an endless source of possibilities for tourism, and it must be reinforced that in this country is more than the Galapagos Island, because everyone knows the Galapagos, but no one knows Ecuador as a country. Well, although the coastal region of Ecuador is very known as for its beautiful beaches, in the last 5 years, emphasis has been put in promoting another areas of the coast, which is less known, and it is the Chocó region. Personally, I consider myself lucky to be able to work and contribute to the conservation of the Chocó forest and the Tesoro Escondido Reserve. Tesoro Escondido is a place where plants and animal species are being taken care of with the participation of the people from the local communities who understand the value of conserving these biological hotspots. Also, the reserve, at the present, the reserve is interested in receiving volunteers, students, tourists, and scientists to discover the beauty of the reserve. Although the COVID pandemic affected tourism in general in Ecuador and the world, Esmeraldas province was very affected, and now we're looking for opportunities to promote tourism for the country and also for the reserve and the local communities that surround the reserve. One of my favorite things about the reserve are the activities done there. One of them is that visitors can participate in a chocolate tour that includes the whole process of obtaining fine chocolate from cacao grown locally, that has received many prizes for its high quality flavor. Also, visitors can experience the life of local families who open the doors of their houses. And I'm sure that you will want to come to visit us. We will be glad to give you, to guide you through this amazing place. So yes, thank you very much.